Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Please make sure you can hear me. If not, there's a comment chat box in the bottom if you have any problems with your audio. I'd like to thank you for joining us. I am Kate Schwarting, our Gallery North moderator for today's event. Welcome to Artist Encounters, a weekly series hosted by Gallery North. Today, we're joined by Doug Reina in his studio. Doug is a local artist from Setauket. He does landscape paintings and he paints people in his life. He's also a cartoonist and recently published a book of his work. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few things with the structure on Zoom that we'll be doing today. Doug will be speaking for about 15 to 20 minutes and showing us around his studio and talking about his process. And after that, we'll have a short Q&A session. You can use the chat feature in the bottom of your screen to let us know you have a question. And I can unmute you so you can ask Doug a question. You can also use it if you have a really burning question during the studio tour as well. We also have a little raised hand feature. If you're using your phone, it'll be under the More selection, and you can raise your hand to ask. So let me find Doug and turn it over to him.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, hi everybody. Nice to see you all. I'm not sure. Let me put my screen on something that makes some sense to me, I guess. I see Kate. If I do that, okay, bear with me just a second. I'll go back to the many images of us all. Well, hello. Welcome to Mars. It feels like we're talking to each other through some kind of a space program. Well, the first thing I'd like to do, if I can, is I'm going to get off my power supply and I'll take you guys for a quick walk around the studio. There's some of you who maybe haven't seen it. Out of curiosity, how many artists do we have with us today? How many fellow painters is what I'm curious about. Like, raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, oh, good. There's a bunch there. Hey, I see Fran. How are you? Okay, good. All right. Okay, all right. Well, so the reason I say that is because if you're anything like me, equipment, brushes, tubes, those kinds of things fascinate me. How other artists set up things. So I don't want to bore people with that stuff, but if you're interested in it, I'd love to share with you what I know. So are you ready for a quick tour? Let's go. We'll do it. Now I have to flip the view. Right there. And I should have that view. Ah, good. Right? That's interesting. I have somebody else there. Okay. Well, this is the door. You come in, and there's a workbench or a drawing table, rather. Some pieces we'll be talking about in the show. Table. Then over here we have some flat files, and then this is the actual, what I kind of think of as the cockpit to this journey that I'm on. This is where I work, and these are the tubes of paint. Now, if you're wondering what to do for a palette table, and I'm sure there's a lot of us that have an old walker, it's a fantastic thing to make a palette out of, and it's adjustable, and I recommend it. I recommend it very much. As you see, there's the area where some of the brushes are, and here's pretty much the Bible in this studio that always stays at that book. A book about Richard Diebenkorn. And I was lucky enough to spill some coffee on it, and the library said, well, congratulations, it's yours. So this is the back sink. It's a very, very, very nice studio. It has feelings, And right now I have some panels put over the windows because I had a little viewing of my work, and by putting the panels up, I can get just a little bit more space. And then back here is the office. And what you'll see is I was going to go to the Vermont Studio Center for 2 weeks and do an artist residency, my first one ever. And it got canceled because of all this virus stuff. But I had really prepped. I have canvases all over the place. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I'm a little crazy. Like, how many canvases would I have gotten done in 2 weeks? I don't know. Here, I'll put you guys back up here and we can get back to looking at each other. Hang on. Ah, good. Okay. So Kate, I have a question to ask. Is it possible we could have people not be muted? That way, if they want to say something real quick or whatever, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Okay. Well, I'll have to take turns because whoever speaks will become large. And you can also put your screen on a gallery view. That'll make it a little bit easier so that it doesn't jump around. That should be up in the top right-hand side of your screen.
Right. That's what I have right
do
now.
That, and I will.
So I can see you guys.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We've got somebody raise their hand. Please raise your hand if you have a question. So let's see.
Yeah. No, can you hear me now, Doug?
Yes.
Hey, Saul, I can hear you.
Yeah.
You know, Saul, I have to laugh because your background is fantastic.
Puerto Rico. It's Puerto Rico. You can change it at will. You can choose anything in your photos.
Wow.
I'm probably going to change it during the course of this visit, this session.
That's very
Fun
good.
to do.
Yeah. You know, I didn't recognize you. I thought, wow, who do we have here? You know, but now I see it's you. Okay. Would you like to ask anything, Saul, or no?
Actually, I did have a question, but I got sidetracked when it said I couldn't unmute because headquarters had muted us. But so, is that Maureen there?
Yeah. Hi, Saul.
Hi, Maureen. How are
I'm
you?
doing this on a phone, which is really hard. I can only get 4 people at a time. So.
Well, well, it sounds a little noisy, doesn't it? Maybe that wasn't a good idea. Whoever has any noise in their background, mute themselves until they want to say something. How about that?
I'm gonna mute everybody, and when you raise your hand, I will unmute you.
There you go. All right.
All right.
So I will.
Hang on 1 second. I have to unmute Doug. There we go. Okay. Raise your hand if you have a question.
So I will continue. Okay. So as I mentioned, I was going to go to the Vermont Studio Center. I was so excited about that, and that didn't happen. But what happened instead was, everything stopped. Whatever classes I had going on out here in the studio, that all stopped, and that meant that I could come to the studio and just concentrate and work. And that's what I've been doing. And it's been a nice place to hunker down and do some things. So why don't I, right now, you know, I have a couple of notes here that maybe we'll get to, but first I'll show you a couple of the recent things that I've done, and we can just sort of talk about that a little bit. For me to do that, I have to go to the system here, and if it's behaving, and if I did all my things correctly, my albums, yes, new work, there's that. All right, then this, and I'm even going to show you that. All right, good. Okay, I trust that you can all see this. Since I really can't hear anybody, I'm just going to roll along as best I can. This is a piece that I was real excited to make. It's got a feeling of Edward Hopper, and it has a feeling of Richard Diebenkorn. As I mentioned, I like Richard Diebenkorn quite a bit, and I always loved Hopper quite a bit. Ever since I heard that expression he had, which was, I like to paint light hitting the side of a building. And I've always felt that way myself. I always love painting light and shadows. If I go out to do a plein air painting, if it's an empty field with no shadows or whatever, I'm so not interested in it, because I like the feeling of the warmth of light. And then this piece I thought kind of tied in nicely with what we're all going through. It's so funny. I'll make a piece, I'll post it onto Instagram and Facebook. This piece generated not one, but 3 people hopped up and said they wanted to buy it, which is a very, that's unusual for me. So it must have struck a real chord with the folks. One of them is a friend of mine, and he just cracks me up because he said this is part of his job. He ends up waiting around loading docks quite a bit, and I thought, oh, okay, so that's fun. But I was real happy with how this came out. Let's go to the next one. This is a bigger painting, and when I come back to live on screen, you'll see behind me. This is a 52 by 38, and I like this painting because it gave me a chance to see the world in abstract shapes that kind of create some kind of an interesting pattern onto the canvas, and as well as gives me a chance to play with strong light, strong color, strong shadows. And in this sense, I also added the element of a person sort of sequestered, like we all are, in the shot. Here's a close-up of the person. Now, in a second, I'm going to show you the photograph that I took for the reference. I do use photographs when I'm working in the studio quite often, and my aim is to transcend the photo. I've painted enough lousy copies of photo paintings in the early days that I know that that's not exactly interesting to anybody, including me. After a while, I like to have the freedom to pick my own colors, my own techniques, leave things out. So that's how I've evolved over time as a painter. Here's the photo. And I couldn't remember where I took this photo. And then luckily the iPhone tells you, and it was out in Sag Harbor. We were visiting our friends, Pat and Tom. They were showing us behind the building. And I remember as I walked in, that caught my eye. And I quickly took out my camera and I banged 2 shots, bang, bang. And I remember Tom actually looking at me like, what are you doing? But it happened that quick. And I was so glad I did. Now you'll see I left the van out. The colors are different. The sky is different. So it gives me a chance to have some of my own freedom with these things. And of course, I added the person. There was no person in there at all. The thing I've learned as I've done more and more of these is, and I've learned it the hard way, I must say. I was lucky enough to have Stan Brodsky as a mentor teacher. And I would bring a painting for him to give his 2 cents. And he would say, well, why did you add that? And I said, well, because it was there. And he'd say, no. And so I've taken that quite, to heart. And so I've kind of tried to make things, I'm trying to do poetry and not so much reporting, right? All right, so there's that. Okay, let's see. If I press this button, what happens? Stop share. That's right. Okay, good. Does anybody have any question about the new work? Maybe we could do it if you raise your hand. I don't know. How would you like to do that, Kate?
Yeah, I see. Okay, I see one here. Let me start. Okay, let's see. I have your name down as IP. Let's see. I unmuted you, but you're still muted on your side. Please look at your on your screen down on the lower left side. There should be a little red unmute button.
But I'm not.
There we go. There we go. We can hear you now.
Hey, Doug.
Okay, hang on. Let me find you. Hey, George, how are you?
Very good.
How you doing, George?
Good.
I like the way you're composing the shot, just peeking up over the.
I'm trying to do it with the iPad. I'm having a little.
That's all right.
On my lap here.
George
Do you
is
have
the
a
fellow.
question?
George is a fellow artist who lives out in Montauk.
Oh,
So-
wonderful.
Yeah. Go ahead, George. What's the question?
I forgot already. I got messed up here.
All right.
Oh, actually, I wanted to know if you could hear me.
If I'm what?
If you guys could hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm on now. That's all
Yeah.
I wanted. That
Right.
was my.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mute and unmute. When you ask a question, I'll unmute it for you.
All right. Well, so if there's no questions about the new work, I can continue with
You got
sort of where
somebody
this.
else. I saw there was one other question. Hang on a second. Not sure what your name is. I have it down as iPhone 2. iPhone 2, wherever you are
Okay.
you are on.
It's Saul.
There you
Rutherford.
go.
One, Doug, on the loading dock, I know that's relatively recent. Did you think of, was it during the current isolation from the coronavirus, or had you, I mean, did you have that idea in mind when you painted that? That's what I want to know.
You know, I had that image in my pocket in the sense that is behind my bank up in Port Jefferson. And I always like to drive behind the store. You know how they have like the strip store, the strip malls, whatever they're called. And if you go behind them, you get to see a whole nother side of the world, right? The loading docks and all that great shadow. And the funny thing was, as I was driving, I happened to see him sitting there. And I thought there was something poetic about it. This was a little bit before the whole virus situation. I stopped the car, I hopped out, and I fired off a quick couple of shots, and I got back in the car and I took off. And I have to be careful when I take these shots, because I think there was another person who saw me taking those pictures and thought it was strange. Because what business do I have being back there, you know? And that fella that I was taking a picture of, and the fella that was coming to ask me what's going on, they might not like to have had their pictures taken. But I say, you know, I wish I had a giant license that says I'm an artist. It's okay, you know?
Yes. Well, you know, I had that kind of thing happen with Kevin McAvoy. I took a picture. It was a garage. It was a similar kind of scene, and I took the picture just as I was walking into class, and these two guys came running after me.
Yeah.
And they were very threatening, and they asked, "Why did you take this picture?" And I was just so flabbergasted. And of course, I think they were probably illegal migrants.
Right.
And so they must have thought I was from, from the government.
Yeah.
So and I tried to explain to them, and I told them I would delete it. I suppose there's another way. If you could tell people afterwards, you have to tell them afterwards, because if you wait, if you tell them to pose, well, that's not the point.
Well, let me tell you a funny story, Sal. Let me jump in real quick, because we don't have a lot of time. So let me just say, the other day I was driving through another section of Port Jeff up there, and I saw a gentleman in his bathrobe. He looked great, standing on his front porch. I just thought, oh, this is interesting. And I pulled over and I said, "Would you mind if I took your picture?" And of course he said yes. So there you go. All right. So let me move on, Sal. I'm going to talk a little bit now about.
I have one other quick question for you, Doug.
Okay.
From Cindy.
Okay. Actually, I'm Warren.
Hey, Warren.
And she's Cindy.
Nice.
I'm just a little back before you were talking about the unfortunate cancellation of the residency.
Yeah.
Was there any talk about postponing that or holding it next year or anything like that?
They felt that they could put me in September, maybe in late summer, but definitely September. And honestly, I would have preferred that because the time I was going to go was March 14th. And I don't know Vermont at all that well, but I'm imagining it's kind of muddy and cold in that time. So if I could go up in September, that's fine. Yeah. Have you ever done a residency, Warren, or a writing residency?
No, I haven't. But
Yeah.
sounds, listening to you, it makes me think that it's a good idea. Not the postponement, but the idea
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. I know Vermont they do have writers up there. So that maybe I'll see you there.
Okay. What's
Okay.
what's the name of the program? I'll look into it.
Vermont Studio Center.
Okay.
If you,
The,
they're online, you can find out.
yeah. I think, for what it's worth, I think that Edward Albee Center and the Robert Wilson Center both have opened up residency programs. And I think what's going on now, who knows, but it had opened before the contagion.
Yeah. This is such a strange time. For me, I'm kind of concerned about it because, of course, I'm not really going to be teaching in the studio right now, so that's a problem. The gallery shows that I was scheduled to have this summer have all been postponed. I guess what I'm going to do is take this moment to say thank you to any and all folks that do reach out to me and are interested in my work and contact me. I can't tell you how much that means to me, how fortunate I am to have that. Anyway, I go on. All right, so if there's nothing else, I'm gonna maybe talk a little bit about the older work that led to this stuff.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. All right, so let's go back to my albums here and go to photos and albums. Und dann die albums. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Right. Oh, come on, love. All right, all right, all right. And then we'll say done. All right. Yeah, so what I was tuning into a while ago, you guys can all see this stuff, I hope. What I got out of Richard Diebenkorn is, no, of course there's Hopper, right? So Hopper's painting all these interesting scenes from his life, and that's exactly what I do. I'll see something that speaks to me and I'll take it. But what I got out of Richard Diebenkorn, when I looked at his work, I was excited by it. And why was I excited about it? Because it operated not only as a figurative realistic picture, but it also operated as an abstract picture. And I wanted to grow in that area, but I wasn't really comfortable with doing abstraction. In fact, I have to say I've been studying a lot about abstraction lately because I would like to try it. I'd like to get more comfortable with it. I'd like to be more contemporary with it, but I had no idea what I was doing. And I was turning out these terrible pieces, which makes me want to, I'll read something in a second. Why don't we flip through some of these? So here, this one, this picture, the reason I pulled this picture up is because it was early on, and it was a mistake that I liked. It turned out really well. You know how they talk about artists, they want you to, an artist likes, they welcome accidents, they welcome chaos. Well, this picture, even though it's a simple picture of this shack that I love, I had coated the surface of the aluminum panel, which George, you gave me this aluminum panel, and I had coated it with tar, roofing tar, because I had heard about another artist who used roofing tar as a painting material. I thought, well, maybe I'll try that. But I coated the whole surface, and then when I painted on top of it, I thought, well, I'll just paint this anyway. I like these black surfaces to paint on. But the paint and the mineral spirits interacted with the picture, and it changed my colors. And if you look at that sky, look at all that craziness that's going on, and the whites. I mean, it really made I thought, a very cool effect. But we'll go on. Now, this is another painting that I did on a black surface, although you can't really see a lot of the black. It's in the top. I'm just going to go through these a little fast. This is one of my favorites. And in this one, the idea was, well, you don't need to finish it. Let the black be part of the excitement of the picture. And I did. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, what that's all about. But you can see that sky. You can see that water. These are color choices that are definitely not happening at West Meadow Beach. But because of the the thinking that I got from Richard Diebenkorn, hey, who cares? You're making a painting. And you want to make a painting that excites you, that does something to you, that stimulates you. And so that opened me up to thinking differently about what am I doing here? And it made painting so much more fun for me. I'll show you a couple of other ones. This is a portrait I did of an artist who recently passed away. He was a sweet guy named Athos Zacharias, Zach. And you can see it. I start on these blackened surfaces. I call them blackened, but it's a mixture of ultramarine, transparent brown, oxide, and a little bit of alizarin crimson. And I kind of spackle it on, and then it gives me this nice surface. But you get some interesting things happening. Here's another one. And again, I'm leaving a lot of the black to be part of the design. And here's another one. Now, what I like about these paintings is there's some ambiguity going on here. There's something else going on here. I guess they're mine. That's what I like about them, is that I'm the only one that made this. Rather than in the old days, I would paint like lots of plein air paintings. A lot of people painted plein air paintings, and as fun as that is, I love painting plein air paintings. I think the very act of creating something on your own is so rewarding. And when that starts to happen, it really is exciting. Look, here, I'm going to zoom in. Maybe you could see that. What the black gives me is a chance to get all of this sort of broken color happening in the background. And I really love the way, if you paint around the figure, now this isn't a sharp picture because I don't know why it's not as sharp as it could be, but I like how you get all this sort of wild edges. This painting was done with a brush, but the other painting that I showed you, the recent work, has been done with mostly, 99% of it has been done with a palette knife. And I love the broken color that I can get and the way it really puts on a strong dose of chroma, of color. Here's another, this is a shack out in Montauk, George, near Tech territory, near Fort Pond, over the tracks. And this is my nephew. Yeah, okay, we'll let it be what it is. And then we'll go here. And Maureen, that's a picture of you in your red jacket. This is right outside my studio looking up towards Gnarled Hollow Road. This was a little painting that I'm happy to say somebody bought. And here's another painting. And you can see I'm playing with the color, putting strong colors next to each other. This one came from a little black and white, 3-inch photo of my dad and his 2 sisters when my dad was about 5. And I struggled with this painting long time. What am I doing? This and that. I mean, I painted that background on that horse so many different ways. And then finally I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to do what I want to do. And that's how it ultimately came out. And it makes me smile. All right, so there's that. Okay. So those are some of the sort of recent paintings that are leading me up to the work that I'm doing now. I'm going to show you one other set of things, and then we'll talk a little bit more. So I'm going to just jump in. Are there any questions about that work before I jump into the next thing?
I have one here. Let's see, from Cindy and Warren saying, tell us about your new abstract work, the one you did to music at the Port Jeff event. Very good work, very different for you. Will you be doing more abstract?
Right. So Kate, do you think you can play that video, and then we'll, maybe I can talk over the video too?
Yes.
Is that possible? Okay.
Yeah, and while I do that, we also had a question from Lauren. She asked, will you be having any online exhibitions?
Online exhibitions. Okay, well, let's talk. I'll answer your question after don't play the video just this second. I'll answer that question first. Online, most of the things I do on the computer are either going to be on Instagram or Facebook or on my website. but I haven't really given any thought about having an online show. It's not a bad idea, but okay. So Warren and Cindy, yeah, this is something that happened about a month ago in Port Jefferson. If you can, Kate, play the video so people can get an idea. Okay, what you're going to see here is Doug is painting as the other Doug Baldwin, is playing guitar. And the idea was that my painting would influence what he's playing, and his playing would influence what I'm playing. And I'm doing this in front of like about 70 people. And they've got this wonderful view of me, lucky them. Now, the problem with doing this kind of a painting is that, you know, for my fellow artists, you know, a painting looks pretty bad for a long time before it suddenly starts to, you know, get together and get better. And I have to laugh because after a little while, I just had to kind of dive in and get to it. But there it is. There's the work. It seemed like people liked it. And that work is directly related to this wonderful Hans Hofmann stuff that I've been going through. I've read a couple of books now. I'm in the middle. I'm almost done with this one big book that is by Tina Dickey. It's called Color Creates Light, and it's about Hofmann, and it's in the words of his students. Hofmann was teaching abstraction in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And I said, oh, if I'm going to learn how to do any abstraction, I need to go back to it and figure out what's going on. And I have some notes here. And one of the notes is, I thought I'd read it to you. And this is in Hans Hofmann's words, because I write things down in my notebook just because and so I found them. Here, I'll read this one. The aim of art is to vitalize form. The creative process lies not in imitating, Doug, but paralleling nature, translating the impulse received from nature into the medium of expression, thus vital. The only values that make a work of art great are emotional and sensory. Take that one for what it's worth. And then when color is richest, form is fullest. And, you know, Hofmann had taught about colors that would go back and come forward. And so that painting, I think it came out okay because some of that action was happening in it. And I'm happy about it because at least I had a plan when I made that painting. Some of the other abstractions that I had experimented with, I would make them, but they didn't talk to me in the studio when I would look at them. I don't know why. And that leads me to this note. I don't know if any of you like to listen to podcasts as you paint or just as you do whatever you do, but I do. And I particularly like to listen to podcasts where they interview other artists. It sort of charges my battery. So I'm going to pass on. Here's my endorsement. There's a podcast called Artist Decoded. And it's awfully good. It's been going on since 2015. I think the interviewer is not as good as the people that he interviews. I think they're very talented. For example, they interviewed Jennifer Paczynski, who's an artist who I like very much, very loose. I like this loose stuff. I'm thinking about it. But in any case, he interviewed an artist named Casey Bowe back in 2015. And Casey Bowe does sort of realistic stuff. He studied under Richard Schmidt. He's pretty good. And he was saying that, you know, you should be in tune with what you enjoy. And the problem is that when you're trying to find an idea for a painting that people will like, or you're searching for that original idea, trying to invent something new, you're actually stepping out of your experience of what you know. And so you're not really making anything that, in his opinion, he doesn't think it's a very honest thing that you're making. It's a little bit fake. Instead, you know, if you can get excited about the things that you do know and the interests that you have, you eventually will pour more of your energy, your love, your heart into the piece, and it will come out better. And I think there's some truth to that for me. I don't know about the rest of you, but that kind of resonated for me, and I made a note to write that down. All right, so what are we talking about now? Where are we at now? Oh, so let me show you some stuff again. And we're going to go back to the photos. Und dann wir go here. Und dann wir go. All right. And we're going to go here, here. Okay. So this painting I liked a lot because you could see that I had started this rather so-so abstract in the background. And luckily, I felt like painting this woman on top of it. I say luckily because, you know, sometimes the best things are the things that you feel your way into. You weren't planning it. Like I didn't really plan on doing this. I just had this canvas kicking around, and I had this image of this woman who's a model for us. And so I thought it was a happy marriage of that weird background with this kind of a drawing, and I sort of liked how it came out. So the next section of pictures that I'm going to show you deal with you know, some departures, some experiments, some things, and so we'll go through this. This is a painting of kind of like what I can do, where I can catch some light and catch some color. The fun thing about this picture is that that's on a metal truck panel door that I found in the parking lot outside my studio. And I kept it around the studio here for a couple of years thinking, I got to do something with this. I got to do something with this. And so eventually it became a painting, and that's how it hangs on the wall, just like that. That's out at the Guildhall Members Show right now, which unfortunately I don't think anyone's going to. Although the Guildhall Members Show is online. So if you want to see that show, go to their website. I'm sure you can. Excuse me. So I remember reading years ago that Diebenkorn, who was a smoker, would rip off the lids of his cigar boxes. He would just paint all over them and then give them away as gifts and this and that. But I started to look at the cigar box as an object. I don't rip off the lid. I'll glue the lid down so it's no longer a box that works. And I'll keep the border as a framing device. And I'll just put a hole in the back and you hang it on a wall as a painting. And I always love doing that. And there's something charming about them, and people seem to like them. This picture I stuck in here because it has a quality of painting that I do like, where the paint is strong and it's loose and it's fun. And it was done at a recent plein air workshop that I had given out in Peconic at Wendy Prelwitz's house. So we'll move on. And so, as it's mentioned, I have like a cartooning background, and humor is something that I like. And I thought, well, why am I not doing that? I did this nice book, which I'll show you before we go. And I said, well, why am I not using those skills? I mean, I am always drawing weird drawings. And so this is a little painting that I made. It's about 22 by 16 or so of people that I think should be celebrated. And yeah, this picture is sitting out with the Sarah Nightingale Gallery right now, although I don't know when she's going to be showing it, but she liked it, which was good. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if I would do too much more of them, but it's an interesting departure. And here is the big abstract that's hanging in the studio that I did in front of the live audience. So, you know, using the Hans Hofmann thing, I tried to have color while it's sort of staying on the surface of the canvas, will also create through color depth. What Hofmann was teaching in this book I found fascinating, and I want to try it with my students, is that he didn't want people to like render light going, you know how like if you render an apple or an egg, you do that modeling going from light to dark. He wasn't about that. He wanted to break the world down into planes of color and form. And then through the use of color, you create this depth. And I think I can get my arms around that. So I might try fooling around with that a little bit. Okay. Oh, I'm going to take us to one more section. I'll show you, and then we'll button things up here. Hang on a second. Photos, und then, yeah. And then, okay. All right, the reason that I'm showing you this is because, you know, sometimes a medium will take you down a road that you didn't think you'd go down. And in this case, what you're looking at here is graphite powder that I dumped on top of paper, but I had started to do the drawing with some kind of like acrylic medium or something that dries real fast. Well, no, this was shellac. I used shellac. And I just love this crazy tearing of the graphite powder creates these kind of beautiful effects that I just couldn't how did I do that? So it allowed me to sort of let accidents and chaos into the work. And I think it just makes it so much more interesting. So from this experiment, I hopped into this painting. Now this is a big painting, 40 by 40. Well, it's big to me, it's big. And it's of a scene that Sue and I saw out in Montauk, George. It's funny, George, this was out in Montauk. It was an epic garage sale. And they had this stuffed deer. I shouldn't tell everyone it's stuffed, but it's a stuffed deer. And I took a photo of it to make this painting. The name of the deer, they actually said, "Do you want to buy George?" Oh, there you go, George. But I did all of the outline or the drawing of it before I painted it. First, I did an abstract color wash over the background of the painting. That's why you see these yellows and pinks coming through. And then I used that glue technique and dumped the graphite down, and it gave these really wonderful, dirty kind of, I don't know what, it's a strange quality. And then using acrylic, this is all done with acrylics, which is sort of fun to paint with. I managed to get some washes happening and preserve the picture. I love this picture. It's one of these funny things, like the pictures that I love are a little oddball and a little weird, and yet there are people out there that think like me, and they love them too. So I'm happy about that. All right, I'm back. Did I lose anybody? Okay. Kate, you can hear me?
Yep, we're all
Okay.
good still.
Well, I'll answer any questions that you have, and then
Let's see, I have one here.
yeah. I don't see anyone sleeping. Everyone's still awake. Good. Hi, Alicia. How are you? Hi.
Janine, I'm unmuting you. You had a question?
Yeah, Doug. Hi, how are you? I miss you.
Janine, your voice. Good to hear you.
Good to hear you, Doug.
Hey.
I love all your new paintings. They're just wonderful. Would you consider teaching an online course?
Yeah, I've been talking to Sal and some others in the class about it, Maureen and Kasten. Yeah, I would like to do that. But you've been with me for a while, so is Sal. It's not like you need me to show you how to paint anymore, right? I mean, so what would you like to learn is we're going to have this offline, of course, but we would have to tailor this so it would work for everybody.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But I will be in touch with you. And
okay, good.
Okay.
Sure,
I will talk
great.
about
it.
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
All right. See you, Janine. Bye-bye. All right. So
let's see. We have one more. Saul?
Yes.
There, you're on.
Hey, Sal.
Hi, Doug. You asked what you could learn online, and what we could do, what I can see doing is it would be an interactive thing. Like we could paint, sort of be inspired by what we're each painting.
Yeah.
And you would say, push that. Oh, I like, as you're always doing.
Yeah.
Push that. But we could start out in the same place. That you could start out at the same place, give just some general idea. We might start out with some, like, a snapshot, one of these photos, and then see what we can do. But we're working on the same project. That makes it easier for you from a distance, because then you can see what we're doing and make comments, and then we'd all see what was happening. It would be sort of generating a painting together.
I'm gonna take you up on it, And with the caveat that the first 1 or 2 sessions are going to be bumpy, I'm sure.
Well, you have to be, as you say, you have to be loose in your teaching as well as in the paint, with the paint.
Right.
But
right.
I think it's possible. Certainly from that watercolor class that Bill Graff is giving,
Yeah, yeah.
that's sort of what happens. You know, you sort of interact back and forth as you might in a class, except that you started out with the same idea,
Okay.
the same material.
Okay. All right. So we'll take it offline and we'll talk about it further.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. Can't you just imagine what Caiston would do in that kind of situation? I mean, he'd be off the wall.
I know.
But
All right.
Anyway.
All right. Kate,
Next-
did you have?
Yeah, the next question is going to come from Ned,
Okay.
and you're on, Ned.
Hi, Doug.
Hey, Ned, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you
Good.
so much for doing this. It's great
My
so far. I have a question for you about just going back to what you were talking about working from photographs. I actually came across a quote from you from a couple years back about a exhibit that you did here at Gallery North. I think it was called Local Color Then and Now, where you were asked to do choose a building, like a historic building, and do an interpretation of it. And you talked about in the, you were quoted as saying that you like to do sketching of things to kind of get the feel for them. You were specifically talking about this building that you were doing, and now you're working from the photograph of the building. And I was just wondering if you could talk about what the difference is about doing a sketch of a building and then creating something from it versus taking a photograph of it and doing a painting from that. What's the difference there, and what's the difference in the end result for you?
Well, the problem with the photograph painting is that you can slow down too much and overwork it and get stiff and take the life out of it if you're not careful. And the fun of the sketch paintings, and I've done some of it, and I'm happy with the results, where maybe I'll be on location and I can do a quick sketch of it and get an idea of the shape and the values in black and white, and then take that back and from memory work up the painting. And because you're sort of working without a safety net, you don't have any reference. Let's say you didn't take a photo, you just have your memory. Maybe you wrote some notes down. It's actually a lot of fun to do that kind of work, because it's all creative at that point. So they're two, it's like apples and oranges at that point. It's not the same kind of a thing, even though you might be doing the same building. It's a different kind of a thing. I have to be careful when I work from a photograph, because I don't want it to be I don't want to do a copy of a photograph. I've done that in the past, and it's very frustrating, It's funny, I mentioned an artist on this who's out there. Her name is Jennifer Paczynski, and I'm fascinated by her work. You know what it is, Dad? I'll tell you the truth. I'll see somebody's work online, or I'll go to a gallery and I'll see someone's work there, and I'll get a tinge of creative jealousy. I'll say, my God, look at the fun they're having. And that makes me think, well, let's explore this. And so that's something that I have to do. Yeah. The last 2 paintings are very, very tight, very stiff. I hope they weren't overly worked. I think they're okay. They're different. Anyway, I'm rambling. I've had some coffee, so.
Okay. We have another question here about critiques. Would you like to ask your question? I don't have your name. It says M. Kipe?
Yes.
You're on.
Hi. You mentioned before to some of the artists, I know that you know them, that they don't need your help. One of the things that I think a lot of artists would like is to have that somebody looking at the painting when it gets done. I don't really like working at a studio working with other people. I like to work on my own, but I always need someone to look at it and see the things I don't see because I've been looking at it too long.
Oh, I love that. Would you like to be, let's say, on a Zoom group like that once a week?
Exactly. And, the other artists, if they're experienced, they can give you input as well.
Yes.
I want to mention Gallery North is doing weekly critiques on Mondays. Doug, you're welcome to join us. Everyone's welcome to come at 4 o'clock.
Oh, good. That's good to know. Thank you, Kate.
And I'm in Florida.
And you're what?
I'm in Florida.
Ah, good. What part of Florida are you in, real quick?
West Coast, over by Fort Myers.
Oh, my folks are in Sanibel.
Oh, okay.
So they're near you. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. You're not the first person I've heard say that. And I would like to explore that with you. That'd be fun. I must say, as a guy that's been lucky enough to do some teaching out of my studio and with other facilities on Long Island for a few years, if you ever get a chance, have you ever taught by any chance? Well, if you do, you're going to learn so much. Everything kind of gets crystallized, but the students, they tell you things and you share things. It's been, I'm so lucky to have had the chance to teach because I got a lot out of it. I mean, I really did. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, we've got a couple more.
All right.
Okay, up next, is that Minnow?
Minnow, yes. Yes.
Hi, hello.
Hi, how are you? Good, good, thank you. I'm an abstract painter.
Yeah.
And I have studied House Hoffman as you have.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking for others who are interested in abstract painting. And it would be really nice to have these group meetings online and have other people really take a look at my work and give me an opinion or a thought about where I am and where it's going. That's one of my work back there.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank you. But I have done different styles of work, but I have began my abstract work by studying him. And by the way, if I contact you, I have someone's thesis on him that took me a long time to find. And if you're interested, I can send it to you.
I would love that.
Because it is very hard to get information on him. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I searched on YouTube looking for you would think that you'd see him talking. Nothing.
Yeah, I read that book that you're reading. I've read other stuff on him, but this thesis was extremely helpful because because I've had some publication because I'm a psychoanalyst, and through those publications, I was got somehow into other people's theses.
Yeah.
And someone in Australia many years ago wrote a thesis on him. So you'll enjoy that.
Oh, it's so nice. We'll have to figure out how to get in touch with each other. What's your name?
Minu Model.
Minu Model. Nice to meet you.
Same here. Pleasure.
That's really, it's nice to talk to somebody else who's going down that path.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And I figure he's the guy. He's the guy to start with, at least.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Good.
Good.
Nice
Definitely. We'll be in touch. Maybe through her, I can give my email or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Sure, of course. All right.
All right. Anybody else?
Yes, we have another question here from Cindy and Warren. You're on.
Okay. Doug, I was wondering, and it's a big picture question, in what ways has the virus affected the way you're painting? In broad terms, in choice of subjects, in mood, in lighting, in the abstraction versus realism spectrum. What kind of an effect does it have on the mental approach that you bring to painting, an emotional approach?
That's a good question, Warren. The last two pieces that I did have a solitary figure, isolated, lonely, waiting. And so that definitely spoke to how I'm feeling at the moment. I always think that whatever I'm doing is a self-portrait, and so those kind of felt like I was speaking in my voice, even though it's not a picture of me. In essence, maybe it is. I don't know how it will affect values or colors or any of the other things that I'm chasing, because I'm always excited about the light and the shapes and the color. I don't think that's going to get to change too much. So that's my best answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Are there any other questions? Yes. 1 second. We've got one from Sherry.
Yes, actually, can you hear me?
Very good.
This is not a question, it's actually a comment that I think you captured beautifully, the sense of isolation and the sense of solitary feeling that we're all experiencing now in those most recent paintings, with the two figures that are looking off into the distance or just ruminating and thinking. I was thinking about that woman in the window, and it has such a feeling of mystery, like, what is she thinking? Is she wishing she was at a party? Or is she wishing she could just go outside and be in a crowd, go to a park? And what is she thinking about? So in a lot of your other works, I do feel a very strong sense of abstraction, by the way, in a lot of your work. It's innate and it's there. I don't know if you need to find it someplace else, but obviously you're searching for that. So go to it. But
Yeah.
it's there for me. I see it in your shape and form and color. But I see that the human form has now been added, and that there's something that's more connected to the feeling of what everyone that's looking at your work is feeling. Even though you do have that sense of isolation and that beautiful sense of solitary in all of your buildings that are just standing alone in that light that's hitting them. It's lovely. It's lovely to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, usually in the old days, the buildings operate really well for abstraction because, you know, they sort of can chunk up and you can get some different shapes on the canvas. So adding the people, I guess to answer your question or your statement, and to answer Warren's question, adding the people is directly influenced by this virus thing, because they're stuck. They have a sense of stuckness to them. And there's something kind of, you know, like it's like a good sad movie or a good sad book. You know how you enjoy those just as well as enjoying a nice happy picture or a nice happy movie? Sometimes something sad can be even more poignantly beautiful. And I debated about putting that woman, you're going to laugh, but I debated about putting the woman into the window. She wasn't there. I had to figure out how to get a woman in there. And I thought, well, does it really need it? It works as an abstracty kind of a picture. And then I said, look, just do it. You can always paint her out if you don't like it. But I'm glad it went in, and I'm glad she's not she seemed to have gone in subtly. She's not like screaming attention. She's there, but she's not, you know, it's tough to paint a picture like that because there's so much contrast going on. That window against all that white is where you're going to look right away. So right. I think she is a good idea, and I'm glad I put her in. Thank you so much for your comments.
But she does capture your attention, even though she is in that upper corner, and she also connects you to the outside world. And the building is there. It's so solid and it's so beautiful. And then her distance, her eye is someplace else.
Right.
So I felt that connection into some other landscape.
She's thinking, oh no, I've got to go to Stop and Shop. I'm not going to title it that. No, it's nice to meet you. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yes, we've got another one from Ned. If I can unmute you. I think you might have to unmute yours on your side. There we go.
Hi, sorry about that. Doug, I just wanted to say that I just posted a link to an oral history with Richard Diebenkorn that can be found at the Archives of American Art. It's all online, so you can listen to it at your leisure.
Oh, good job, Ned. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take a look.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Yep, we have one more question from Saul. let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. That was a very interesting discussion of the figure in the upstairs of the White House. I remember one time when we were painting behind that bar near your studio, and there was a white building that you put a figure up in there, and it was sort of subtle. And you remember she was saying the rosary, or
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think those are very that was a very interesting use of the figure. And to the person who commented on your figure in this current painting, it is interesting because she doesn't look as though she's being forced to be. She's not in captivity. It's not violence.
Right.
And it could be she's just thinking, just looking, like you do when you're sort of bored and you don't know what else to do. She looks that way. And so it's another comment on the human condition under in this kind of situation. You're doing what you know you have to do, and you know you can't go out. So it's resignation.
Yeah.
It's a sense of resignation.
Do you find that as an artist, and this goes to all of our artists that are listening, like this virus thing where we all have to kind of sequester ourselves, are you working? Do you find it's been conducive to getting any work done?
Well, it's been difficult. It's hard to keep your focus, because no matter when you start working on it, you start worrying about this or that, and it's not always terribly important what you worry about. So I've worked on some of the stuff we worked in class, and I finished a pastel, and now I'm working on this watercolor.
Yeah.
So no, it's the classes are very interesting. I put a plug in for that.
Right. All right. Well, let me ask. Let's ask the other artists if they're. I'm curious if anyone else is working or if they're finding it too depressing to do anything.
Let's see. Well, I'll unmute everyone as a conclusion to all of this. I'll unmute everyone, and we'll see who pops up. Would anyone like to say anything about how they feel they're doing with working as an artist?
I have done more work.
You've done how much?
I have done more work being home.
Yeah.
Good. I've also done more work. I've kind of gone through things, dug things out, and started working on things. I have a few irons in the fire.
Boyd sock.
Yes, most people know me as Boyd from Blix.
Good.
But yeah, this has been helpful for me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. Good, Boyd. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Hey.
Hello, Marcy.
From their homes. Yeah.
I think it was.
He's from Out League of Nassau County and Suburban Out League.
Oh yeah. This guy. Oh.
Yeah. Hi, Sue.
This guy.
All right. All right. Hang on one second.
That was fun, Kate. That was a bit of crazy.
Yeah, I'm just going to mute everybody again for a second. And find Doug. There you are. All right, we're a little bit past 2 o'clock. So I want to, in conclusion, thank you so much, Doug, for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate doing this.
Yeah, I think this was great. Thank you to Ned, our director, who joined us today. Sherry, who also made a comment, will be our artist for next week at the same time, same link. She'll be showing her work, and I'm giving a tour of her studio as well. And let me just stop this. If you like this event, please consider donating to Gallery North. there's a link in our comments chat. We have, again, the critique that we're doing every Monday afternoon as well, if you'd like to join with some of your artwork. And it's pretty informal get together to just kind of go around and talk about what you're working on. And we also have, let's see, our art classes that Larissa is teaching as well. And you can go to our webpage to find all the links to all of our content. So thank you all for joining us today. And
Thank
we
you.
hope to see you next week.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Really appreciate it.